and projecting the slides as and when it is asked to project very nicely, and to make this very effective presentation. As we know, Mahatma letter, this letter number 75 is written by both Master M and Master KH to AP Senate. In this letter, which we, for our convenience, and because of short of time, we divided into part 1, part 2, and part 3. In the first part, we dealt with how Warren Hastings carried his policy to rebuild British prestige in India as the first Governor General of British India. But even though he met with opposition when he returned to England, he was charged by the Edmund Burke with high crimes. This is how those who are really doing good work, they are blamed, they are criticized. And in this Mahatma letter, there is a great statement which need to be contemplated. Mahatma says, this all happens because of delusion and impatience, which is the most painful part, though it is not material, it is immaterial, though it is not bodily pain, but this delusion and impatience last forever, because we are not yet evolved to understand clearly or see clearly. And therefore, such kind of delusion and impatience, and therefore there are number of misunderstanding. So Hastings says, I am the Warren Hastings, the sins of the brotherhood. This is actually impatience and delusions are sins of brotherhood. And Warren Hastings accepts for this. Though he is the first Governor General of British India, and masters want to say, though it is painful, we are carrying on this because he is the person who can contact with the British people and establish this theosophical movement in India, and he will be helpful. And though it is sin of brotherhood, we are patiently accepting to maintain brotherhood. What we have learned from this is to maintain brotherhood, understanding is very important. So in the second part, we dealt with how Evo Hume misunderstood Pearl because of his own assertive nature, dominating attitude, and he was also under delusion. So what we learned from this letter, as what Master has said, when we take the candidate for Chela, Chela must be serious to keep the oath of secrecy at any cost. He has to prove himself fit for Chelaship. And Fern was under such a probation. But Fern is in the hands of two clever dwellers of threshold, which we called Dugpas. Last time we discussed. Dugpas are nothing but the scavengers. They remove whatever vices are present in the Chela. They bring them up to the surface. And therefore, one needs to be very serious and control himself. Especially Master M's letter to Fern is clearly mentions do either so and so or in such a way, there is no other way. So whatever is told, you must carry it. And also he said, do no injury to any human being. And remember, when the motive is good, again one assurance is given. When the motive is good, then every action becomes legal. So many mistakes Hearn did when he was asked to give the letter to Evo Hume, but he did not took it directly to Evo Hume. He noticed that T. Subbarao is going to meet Evo Hume. Why not it is to be given to the T. Subbarao so that he can give it to Evo Hume. And whatever question is asked, he will answer. Thinking this, he gave to the T. Subbarao. T. Subbarao said, no, it is not good way. You better you post it directly at his address. But again, Fern took the decision to send it through the two Dugpas, which he had with him. And that is what led to the misunderstanding. But master strictly instructs. I am giving this introduction because this is the last part of the letter. What we have to understand, therefore I am focusing the master strictly instructs. Forbidden my letter or anything connected with my business to ever be given to anyone. So I have strictly forbidden my letters or anything connected with my business to ever be given to anyone. I am one who will not permit even my enemies to be won over by unfair means. At least I regard Mr. Fern, who seems too ready to use other means to carry on the work. But his motive was good. So we careful. I was also once tempted in my youth. Master says we have to be careful. And he gives his own example. Once he was also tempted in youth, but saved by his caretakers. We also discussed about how Evo Hume Cage thinks Hume is necessary for the Theosophical Society despite of his faults and weaknesses. But Master M was not of this opinion. He had a different opinion about the Hume because Hume always in his own delusion, due to his own pride and self-opinion. So these are the things which we can understand how they were communicating each other, especially masters were communicating directly with Evo Hume and AP Senate, but sometimes they were giving training to Fern and other Jalkul and Dave because they want to give training of this sending the messages or letters, not directly, but through some people who are trained in this direction. And this letter shows Fern, Chesney, and others, they were actually ready to have such kind of training so that they can pass on the messages to Evo Hume and AP Senate. But Evo Hume was not not ready to receive any messages from these people because he was not believing in them. So with this introduction, We go to the next slide, number 27. Pradeep, please, slide number 27, you can show on the screen. We will read that one. Yes. Whereas with Hume, it is really bona fide selfishness, egotism. The cheap, egotism is the cheap, and only motive power is behind it. And the motive power is egoistic philanthropist. He was a philanthropist, but focusing his own ego is a word which paints his portrait at full length. This is how Master has described the Hume. And in next it is said, now for Colonel Chesney, since the Chesney really and sincerely was kind enough, that is what it appears, to discern something in the outlines of your poor, humble friend's face, an impression drawn, most probably from the depth of his imagination rather than from any real presence of such an expression as you say. In Jalkul's or Yam's production, the former felt quite proud and begged by permission to precipitate another such likeness for Colonel Chesney. Here, Master Cage says to Jalkul and Yam's production, because they were producing the master's photos or portraits. But they were not skillful as HPB was. And Colonel Chesney also, he impressed Jalkul as a sincere, kind, poor, humble, with friend's face. And therefore, Chesney also asked, or he requested Jalkul to ask him to permit him such kind of training for production of the letter. Then in the next slide, it is said, next slide. Of course, the permission was granted, though I laughed at the idea, and M told to Jalkul DK that Colonel Chesney would also laugh at what he will suspect as my conceit. Because whatever Chesney was asking, it is not wholeheartedly. Just he was showing on his face all those characters. But still, Master wants to train some people, though they are not fit. And therefore they say, Colonel Chesley would also laugh at what he will suspect as my conceit. But Jalkul would try and then went and begged permission to present it himself to Colonel Chesney, a permission which was, as a matter of course, refused by the Chauhan, and he himself reprimanded. But the picture was ready 3 minutes after I had consented to it, and DK seemed enormously proud of it. He says, I think that this likeness is the best of the three. So before that, they were produced 3, and this was the good. But picture was ready 3 minutes after I had consented to it. So this is how Master himself tried, because these people are not yet ready to give correct picture. So he himself gave that picture. Next slide. Well, it went the usual way via Jalkul, Deb and Fern, and the H.P. Blavatsky and Damodar being both at Pune at that time. and M was training and testing Hearn for a phenomenon. Of course, a genuine one, so that a pakka manifestation would be produced in Colonel Chesney's house by Fern. That was the intention, to prepare that kind of letter. But while Fern saw, he needed but 3 months preparation. And Master knew he would never be ready for this season, nor do I think he will be ready next year. Here, the Fern's ability, though he was enthusiastic to produce, but that kind of ability was not there in Fern. So he may require 3 more months. Next slide, it shows. Next slide. Anyhow, he entrusted the new picture to Fern, telling him again to better send it by post, not go and give Colonel Chesley directly. Better send it by post, because were the Colonel Chesney to ever learn that Fern was connected in it, then he would disbelieve even in its precipitated production. So the Colonel Chesley was not believing Fern. He may be cheating, he must not be precipitate, but the letter must be given to him. All these processes, doubts were there among them. That understanding was not there. But Jalkul wanted it delivered immediately. And while the Colonel Chesney, as he said, had Master hot in his head still, and Fern, the conceited young fool, answers, "No, before I do anything in connection with the packet, I must study him." Study him means study Colonel Chesney more fully. Fern also wanted to learn Colonel Chesney, and therefore, before it is given to him, either he will keep in under a napkin or so, and all these phenomena last time we see, because he wanted the Hume to obtain the highest possible results at first attempt, as I have not been able to satisfy myself about him. Because Fern was under the, rather he was the secretary to the Hume, and Fern was to prove himself that he can produce at first attempt, as I have not been able to satisfy Hume. This was the Fern's consumption. Then we'll go to the next slide. Yeah. Father told me, here we must understand, I think this is the slide, no? 31. Yeah.
31, sir. 31.
Yeah. Yeah. This, before this all is with reference to Master K's correspondence with the Fern's testing. The master was training and testing Fern for phenomena, so that Colonel Chesney's doubt will be clear about production of letters. See, these British people, they were not believing in such kind of phenomena. And therefore, all the while, doubt was very much. But masters want to convince them, not directly ourselves, but anybody can do, because these all are natural processes. It is not any miracle as such. And this technique was to be taught to the chelas so that nobody will take doubt. So that Colonel Chesney's doubt will be clear about production of letters. But in fact, Chesney was not believing in Fern's ability, and again his doubt getting intense. But Fern wanted to carry out his own experiments on one hand, and on the other hand, he also wanted to study about Colonel Chesney. But anyway, Master M entrusted the new picture to Fern, telling him to send by post and not giving directly. Then KH himself pointed and informed to Master M how dangerous was the situation left in their hands. We are asking them to produce such kind of phenomenon. But it is dangerous, they said. Dangerous because in such probation period, in such probation tests, sense of morality still gets blunted. So morally, they may not be strong. So better not to teach. That is what KH pointed out and said directly, Fern was not yet ready to carry out independently. Then next slide, father told me to be his eyes and ears. He not having always the time, I must find out the character we have to deal with. So in the interval, I fearing that Master Fern may perhaps place the portrait in the fold of Colonel Chesney's napkin and produce some spiritual manifestation with his foot. I wrote to you from Pune through Damodar, giving you a very broad hint, I believe, which of course you did not understand, but will now. That is what Master says. Then in the next style, before this, meanwhile, Easter morning, DK means Jalkul came and told to Fern that Fern still had his picture and that he feared that some trick had or would be played. Then I immediately aroused my two indifferent brothers from his apathy. I showed to him how dangerous was the situation left in the unscrupulous hands of a boy whose sense of morality was still more blunted by the probation, tests, and deceit, which he regarded as legal and permissible, and aroused him finally into action. So this is how it is dangerous. That is what Master explained. And a telegram was also sent to Fern in M's own handwriting, this time from the central provinces. That is Beswala, I believe, where lives a Chela. So they were instructing in various means to the Chelas and giving them right training for the, especially why these were training, because it is not easy to believe in such phenomenon. And if at the beginning HPV made many phenomenon and therefore many people were attracted to the Theosophical Society. And most important, this letter is important because this was sent in such a crucial period where actually Theosophical Society was standing on its own legs, because 7 years were to be completed. First 7 years, lot of protection is required, and that protection was given by the masters directly. That is, it was founded, Theosophical Society was founded in 1875, and this letter is written in 1882. So this was the 7th year, which was very important for the masters to look after the Theosophical Society, to establish and convince the British government. Actually, these people were belonging to the British government, and they were actually training them. It is a natural process, and we are sending messages through these letters. Letters are not any kind of false or delusion. So even they sent with the telegram also. So the next slide we read. Ordering Fern to send on immediately the packet he had for the Colonel Chesney to his address by post. And Fern, as I see, received it yesterday in the forenoon by our time, Tuesday 22. And thus, when you hear of it, you will know the whole truth. I have strictly forbidden, I told this one once, I have strictly forbidden my letters or anything connected with my business to ever be given to Fern. Thus, Mr. Hume and yourself or anyone else at Simla may take my word of honor that Fern will have nothing more to do with my business. So this clearly indicates Master K's view about Fern. In fact, he was regarding Fern because Fern was a pure psychologist. But it is very nicely explained. Pearl is inside, but it is hidden. Hidden by what? Hidden by unattractive oyster cell. Oyster is the bivalve cell in which the pearls are formed. So pearl is there in him, but it is inside the unattracted oyster cell. We can't break it at once. So this is the case within all of us also. We have the divine seed within, but we are not expressing it outside because of the unattractive oyster cell life. And masters have no permission to break that outer cell. And also we don't want to lose Fern. And therefore, protect him from the Hume's action. Hume was very strict, and Fern was under the training under the Hume. So everything was made to follow its natural and orderly course. In the next slide, it is made very clear. But, my dearest friend, you must promise me faithfully and for my sake never to be breathe one word of what I told you to anyone, least of all to Hume or Fern. So unless Fern forces you to stop him, in which case you may use what you think proper of it to force him to shut up. Sometimes you ask him to shut up, yet without ever allowing him to know how and from whom you have learned it. Apart from it, use your knowledge at your discretion. That is what instruction was given to Fern. And further it is said, read my letter, registered and sent to your name from Baswal yesterday, or rather my letter to Hume carefully and think well over before sending it to him, for this letter may provoke him to a fit of madness and hurt pride and make him quit the society at once. So again, they were taking care. Both of them, Master M and Master K, they were looking after whether they will accept it or they should not quit the society at any cost. And so carefully they were sending the letters to the chelas. So better keep it in the next slide. It is said, better keep it as means for future emergency to prove that at least I am one who will not permit even my enemies to be won over by unfair means. That is what in the introduction I told. In last time also I mentioned this. At least I so regard the means that Mr. Pern seems but too ready to use. So at least I so regard the means that Mr. Pern seems but too ready to use. The Pern was very enthusiastic. Of course, anybody who is under training, they want to use their discretion, want to use their experimentation, but better keep it as means for future emergency to prove to him that at least I am one who will not permit even my enemies to be won over unfair means. So Master K.H. was very strict, though Master M was the master of Pern, but K.H. was very strict in this respect. But above all, good and faithful friend, do not allow yourself to misconceive the real position of our great brotherhood. So you should not take doubt in our great brotherhood. Dark and torturous as may seem to your Western mind the path trodden and the ways by which our candidates are brought to the great light, you will be the first to approve of them when you know all. So what kind of difficulties they have faced as they come to this great light, and therefore don't doubt this great brotherhood. That is what Master informs to both Hume and Days. In the next letter, they will clearly say, do not judge on appearances, because you may thereby do a great wrong and lose your own personal chances to learn more. Only be vigilant and watch. If Mr. Hume but consents to wait, he will have more and far more extraordinary phenomenon to silence the critics than he hitherto had. Exercise your influence with him. Remember, in November comes the great crisis, and September will be full of dangers. This also they have instructed. That is what in the beginning I told. Theosophical Society itself was on probation period. Because in the November, the probation period was to be ended. Because in the 17th November 1875, the society was founded. And as I said, this November 1882, 7 years probation will be over. And therefore the master gave hint. Better silence the critics than hitherto had. Exercise your influence with him. Remember, in November comes the great crisis, and September will be full of dangers. Because we want, master telling, Hume and Fern both are essential. because they are connected with the British government, and they want to establish this Theosophical Society properly in the eastern land, so that this divine seed of Theosophical Society can nurture well and it can be developed. That was the aim of writing this letter very carefully. So in the next slide, save at least our personal relations from the wreck, says the master. Vern is the purest psychological subject I have ever met. He is the pearl inside. The pearl is inside and truly, profoundly hidden by the unattractive oyster shell. We can't break it at once, nor can we afford to lose such subjects. While protecting yourself, protect him from you. So both they were taking care of these people, though they were doing wrong things. They were protecting from the misunderstanding of each other. How they were protecting, we don't know, but they were working together for the Theosophical Society, and thus KH writes, "Yours, your faithfully, K." So these are the letter, and next letter in the last slide is Master M. Here it says, please do not regard it as complaint, but believe me when I say that your two letters, and especially the evolution of man, is simply superb. See, AP Senate and A.O. Hume were very intelligent people. And whatever two letters of the AP Senate, especially the evolution of man, is simply superb. Do not fear any contradiction or inconsistency. I say again, make notes of them and send them to me, and you will see. Here again, the evolution of man is mentioned, because it is not easy to convince on those days in 1882, when the Darwin's theory was there, especially of origin of species and evolution of man, how it is evolved by use and disuse theory of organs, etc. So natural selection. But here, the evolution is mentioned. It is three streams, not only the biological evolution, but also there is intellectual evolution and spiritual evolution. Those three streams of evolution, they are going simultaneously. And whatever you have mentioned in your letters about the evolution of man is simply superb. It is how they give their acceptance. And don't fear any contradiction or inconsistencies. I say again, make notes of them and send them to me, and you will see. This is what they were giving direction to those leaders of the Theosophical Society, because AP Senate was a leader and also A.O. Hume was a leader. They were great people, though they belong to the Westerns, but they having capacity to maintain such kind of messages correctly on the paper, etc. So in this sense, whatever evolutionary theory has given by the Theosophical Society is not any experimented as such, but it is direct knowledge which masters see in future, the divine plan. And therefore, in this sense, this letter is very important, and I hope 30 minutes are over, and we can more understand when we read Hindi translation of this. It is a simple letter, but very important to contemplate. I thank you very much for Pradeep Mahapatra for projecting the slides, and also all of you attending this our discussion on the letter number 75 chronologically and 53, and it was in seventh year of the Theosophical Society establishment. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Meenakshi. Now you can carry on in Hindi.
नमस्ते, थैंक यू ब्रदर शिंदे जी। आज हम लेटर नंबर क्रोनोलॉजिकल लेटर नंबर 75 का उर्वरित पोर्शन ले रहे हैं, जो कि मास्टर के एच और मास्टर मौर्य एपी सीनेट को अगस्त 23, 1882 में लिखते हैं। मास्टर के एच सीनेट से कहते हैं कि ह्यूम में बेहद स्वार्थ है, अहंकार है, अहंभावी जनहितैषी, इस शब्द से उन्हें पूर्णतः चित्रित किया जा सकता है। अब कर्नल चेस्नी के बारे में, चूंकि वे सच में बहुत ही सज्जन थे, ऐसा लगा कि आपके बेचारे मित्र के चेहरे की रूपरेखा पर कुछ विचार किया जाए, यानी चित्र के बारे में कहते हैं। इस तरह की अभिव्यक्ति किसी साक्षात उपस्थिति के बजाय, जैसा कि आप कहते हैं, ज्वालकुल या मास्टर एम के उत्पादन द्वारा संभवतः उनके कल्पना की गहराई से प्रतिरूप चित्रित किया गया, यानी उसका उत्पादन किया गया। ज्वालकुल काफी खुश हुए, इसके उत्पादन पर ज्वालकुल काफी खुश हुए और कर्नल चेस्नी के लिए इसी तरह के एक और चित्र बनाने की मुझसे अनुमति मांगी। बेशक उन्हें अनुमति मिल गई, हालांकि इस विचार पर और एम ने डीके से कहा कि कर्नल भी इस बात को मेरा दम
Kindly mute your microphone, please.
लेकिन ज्वालकुल कोशिश करने वाले थे और फिर चौहान के पास जाकर उस चित्र को स्वयं कर्नल चेस्नी को भेंट करने की अनुमति मांगी। यद्यपि चौहान ने इसे नामंजूर किया और उन्होंने स्वयं डांट फटकार लगाई, लेकिन मेरी उसे सहमति देने के 3 मिनट के बाद चित्र तैयार हो गया था और ज्वालकुल को इस बात पर बहुत गर्व हुआ। वह कहते हैं कि मुझे लगता है कि यह चित्र प्रतिरूप उन तीनों में से सबसे अच्छा है, और वह सही है, ऐसा मास्टर कहते हैं। आगे मास्टर कहते हैं, फिर वह चित्र ज्वालकुल, देब और फर्न के जरिए, जैसे आमतौर पर होता है, वैसे गया। इस दौरान एचपीबी और दामोदर दोनों पूना में थे। मास्टर एम फिनोमिना के लिए फर्न को प्रशिक्षण दे रहे थे और परीक्षण कर रहे थे, निश्चित ही एक वास्तविक खरा फिनोमिना, ताकि फर्न द्वारा कर्नल चेस्नी के घर पक्का प्रदर्शन किया जा सके। लेकिन जबकि फर्न ने कसम खाई कि उसे 3 महीने की तैयारी की जरूरत है, मास्टर एम जानते थे वह इस अवधि तक कभी तैयार नहीं होगा, और न ही मुझे लगता है कि वह अगले साल तैयार होगा। उन्होंने फर्न को फिर से यह कहकर तस्वीर सौंपी कि बेहतर होगा उसे डाक द्वारा, यानी पोस्ट द्वारा भेजा जाए, क्योंकि कर्नल को यदि पता चला कि फर्न का इससे ताल्लुक है, तब वे चित्र के अवक्षेपित उत्पादन में भी विश्वास नहीं करेंगे। लेकिन ज्वालकुल इसे तुरंत देना चाहते थे, और जैसे कि वे कहते हैं कि कर्नल ने पूछा, हैड मास्टर हॉट इन हिज हेड स्टिल, और अभिमानी युवा मूर्ख फर्न जवाब देते हैं, नहीं, इससे पहले कि मैं इस पैकेट के संबंध में कुछ करूं, मुझे उनका, यानी कर्नल चेस्नी का पूर्णतः अवलोकन करना चाहिए। इस बार मैं प्रारंभ में ही सर्वोच्च संभावित परिणाम चाहता हूँ। बैटल ऑफ डॉर्किन के लेखक के बारे में मैंने जो कुछ देखा है, उससे मैं स्वयं को विश्वस्त नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ। Father told me to be his eyes and ears, he not having always the time. गुरुदेव ने मुझसे कहा है कि मैं उनकी आंखें और कान बनूं, उनकी दृष्टि और श्रवण बनूं। उनके पास समय की कमतरता है। हमें जिनसे ताल्लुक रखना है, उनके चरित्र का पता मुझे लगाना चाहिए। ऐसा फर्न का विचार था। मास्टर कहते हैं, इसी बीच मुझे इस बात का डर था कि कहीं मास्टर फर्न उस चित्र को कर्नल चेस्नी के नैपकिन की तह में न रख दे और उनके पैर के साथ कोई अलौकिक प्रदर्शन न प्रस्तुत करे। मैंने आपको दामोदर के माध्यम से पूना से लिखा था, जिसमें मुझे लगता है कि मैंने आपको बड़ा व्यापक रूप से संकेत दिया था। निश्चित ही उसे आप समझ नहीं पाए, लेकिन अब समझ पाएंगे। इस बीच कल सुबह ज्वालपुल आए और मुझे बताया कि फर्न के पास अभी भी उसकी तस्वीर है और उसे डर लगता है कि कोई छल हुआ था या होगा। तब तुरंत मैंने अपने बहुत ही बेपरवाह बंधु को उसकी अनासक्ति से जगाया। मैंने उन्हें दर्शाया कि एक विवेकहीन लड़के के भरोसे छोड़ी गई परिस्थिति कितनी खतरनाक थी, जिसकी नीतिमत्ता प्रोबेशन के परीक्षणों और छल कपट द्वारा अधिक कुंठित हो गई थी, जिसे वह लगभग न्यायोचित और जायज मानता था, और परिणाम स्वरूप उसमें कार्यवाही जगाई। फर्न को मास्टर एम की अपनी लिखावट में एक टेलीग्राम भेजा गया था, जो इस बार सेंट्रल प्रोविंसेस से भेजा गया, यानी भूसावला, शायद जहां एक चेला रहता था, जिसमें फर्न को यह आदेश था कि कर्नल को देने के लिए जो पैकेट उसके पास था, उसे वह तुरंत उनके पते पर डाक द्वारा भेजे। और मुझे लगता है फर्न को वह पत्र कल सुबह हमारे समयानुसार मिला। और इस प्रकार जब आप इसके बारे में सुनेंगे तो आपको पूरी सच्चाई पता चल जाएगी। मैंने अपने पत्रों या आप अपने कामकाज से जुड़ी किसी भी चीज को कभी भी फर्न को देने की सख्त मनाही की है। इस प्रकार मिस्टर ह्यूम और आप या शिमला में कोई भी मेरी बात माने कि मेरे कामकाज से फर्न का कोई लेना देना नहीं है। लेकिन मेरे प्रिय मित्र, आपको मुझसे ईमानदारी से यह वादा करना होगा, मेरे खातिर मैंने आपको जो कुछ भी बताया उसका एक भी शब्द किसी को नहीं बोलेंगे, ह्यूम और फर्न से भी नहीं। इस ज्ञान का उपयोग अपनी विवेक से करें। कल भुसावला से आपके नाम रजिस्टर किया हुआ मेरा पत्र पढ़े, या बल्कि ह्यूम को लिखित पत्र को ध्यान पूर्वक पढ़े और उसे भेजने से पूर्व अच्छी तरह से सोचे, क्योंकि यह पत्र उसे उन्मत्त करने के लिए प्रवृत्त कर सकता है और उसके अहंकार को ठेस पहुंचा सकता है और उसे तत्काल थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी से बाहर करवा सकता है। बेहतर होगा कि भविष्य की आपात स्थिति के लिए उसे यह साबित करने के लिए पत्र को रखे कि मैं ऐसा हूं जो अपने दुश्मनों को भी अनुचित तरीकों से जीतने की इजाजत नहीं देगा। लेकिन अच्छे और सच्चे मित्र हमारे महान सिद्ध संघ की सत्यता के बारे में स्वयं को संभ्रमित न करें। जिस प्रकार से हमारे कैंडिडेट्स को दिव्य प्रकाश की ओर लाया जाता है, वह मार्ग आपके पाश्चिमात्य मन को अंधकारमय और दर्दनाक कष्टदायक प्रतीत होगा। लेकिन जब आप सभी बातों से अवगत होंगे, तब आप सर्वप्रथम ऐसे होंगे जो इसका स्वीकार करेंगे। ऊपरी दिखावों के आधार पर अपनी राय न बनाएं, क्योंकि ऐसा करने से आप बड़ी गलती करेंगे और अधिक ज्ञान हासिल करने के आपके व्यक्तिगत अवसरों को खो सकते हैं। केवल जागरूक रहे और देखें। यदि ह्यूम धीरज रखने में सहमत होते हैं तो उनके पास अब तक की तुलना में आलोचकों को चुप कराने के लिए कई अधिक और असाधारण फिनोमिना होंगे। उन पर अपने प्रभाव का प्रयोग करें। याद रखें कि नवंबर में बड़ा संकट आएगा और सितंबर खतरों से भरा होगा। थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी का सप्तवर्षीय प्रोबेशन काल नवंबर 1882 में खत्म होने पर था। कम से कम हमारे निजी संबंधों को इस महाविनाश से बचाओ, ऐसा मास्टर सीनेट से कहते हैं। आगे वे कहते हैं कि मनोवैज्ञानिक दृष्टि से फर्न एक विचित्र व्यक्ति है। एक अनाकर्षक सीप की गहराई में छिपा मोती भीतर में है। हम उसे अचानक असमय तोड़ नहीं सकते, न ही ऐसे व्यक्तियों को खोने की जोखिम उठा सकते हैं। ह्यूम से आप स्वयं का भी बचाव करें और फर्न का भी। आगे मास्टर एम सीनेट से कहते हैं, कृपया इसे एक तारीफ के रूप में न ले, लेकिन मेरा विश्वास करें जब मैं कहता हूं कि आपके 2 पत्र और विशेष रूप से द इवोल्यूशन ऑफ मैन अति उत्तम है। किसी विरोध, खंडन या विसंगतियों से डरे ना। मैं पुनः कहता हूँ, उनके नोट्स बनाए और उन्हें मेरे पास भेजें, एंड यू विल सी। थैंक यू। नमस्ते।
Thank you, Meenakshi. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice.
Yeah. Now I request the participant, if you have any question, you can ask. Any doubt, any clarification, you can ask that question. So the place Bhusawal is now a very ancient city in Maharashtra.
Bhusawal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Mahatma mentioned there is one chela was staying there. Any theosophical link that chela, any connection?
No, that is not in Bhusawal. I think it is concerned with the Ujjain. Ujjain, you know that our corresponding secretary, who is there? So
Yes.
he was there. I don't know the
Kaul, Ashok Kaul.
Ashok Kaul, but his grandfather
Yes, yes.
was connected with the masters because they have sent letters to him.
Okay.
So it belongs to Rajasthan. It belongs to Ujjain is belonging to MP, no?
Yes, MP, Madhya Pradesh.
Madhya Pradesh, and Bhusawal is Madhya Pradesh.
Now it is in Maharashtra.
Bhusawal is in Maharashtra. Okay. In Maharashtra also there were many. I don't have any idea of it. What we must remember, Master's Kate says, be pure, virtuous, and lead a holy life.
Yes.
Then you will be protected.
Right.
But remember, he who is not as pure as a young child, better leave chelasip alone. That is what his instructions are. Because it is the chelasip unveils the inner man and draws forth the dormant vices as well as dormant virtues. And latent vices are very dangerous. They begets the active sins and is often followed by insanity. That is the instruction of Master K.H.
Yes, sir. So, very interesting letter we have completed. As there is no question, so no need of clarification from professors. So, we are going to close. I invite Mithalini ji to sing the closing prayer.
Thank you. Thank you.
Namaste to all.
Namaste.
Oh. असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मां अमृतंगमय सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
Namaste. Are we Vastradhar there?
Namaste, sir. Namaste, sir.
No, namaste, namaste. Thank
Very
you for
nice
your
presentation,
attending.
Yes, very nice presentation, sir.
Yeah, yeah. It is important letter. One should read
Yes,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
Definitely, sir.
Namaste, Shinde sir.
Karkhane